Okay, so let's take a look at some mental math techniques, starting with front-end multiplication. So let me give us something that we can multiply. So 64 times 5. Front-end multiplication means start with the front end there. So 5 times 60 is 300. And then you can go to the other position. So 5 times 4 is 20. And then you just have to add those two values together. Okay, so front end, instead of starting with the ones position, start with the biggest position. Using compatible numbers, so let me give us something to multiply together. Okay, so using compatible numbers means, let's take a look at our numbers and see groupings. So like the 5 and the 20 is really 100. And this 5 and that 2 grouped together gives me another 10. And then I have 9. Well, that's really easy to see that it's 9 with 3 zeros. But that's a lot easier to do because of how I grouped the numbers together. Okay, thinking money. This was kind of interesting. When I saw this technique, I'm like, well, that's a little different. So let's think of this as we're taking 64 times 5. What if we think about that in terms of 64 nickels, right? Well, nickels, if I partner them up, so 64 nickels would be how many dimes? So if you kind of think of it, I'm going to divide that by 2, but I'm going to multiply that one by 2. And so here I get 32 dimes times the 10, and we can see that that's 320. But if you just group them together that way, it's a little, in other words, divide one by 2, multiply the other by 2, but it only works because we're multiplying by 5. So we can think of it that way. Okay, so this is still under the umbrella of mental math. So again, I'm teaching you how to estimate in your head by writing stuff down. But anyways, I'm trying to point you towards a way to think about this. So if I did, let's say I do 7 into 4,256. All right, so breaking up the dividend, the technique would be, let me rewrite the dividend as 4,200 plus 56, and then I can just focus in on the two compatible pieces. For example, how 7 goes into 4,200 600 times, and then 7 goes into 56 8 times, so I can just add that together and get 608. But again, the technique is break it up into smaller, more manageable numbers and then add your result together. Using compatible numbers, so let me give us something that we can divide here. So 3 into 105. It's kind of similar to breaking up the dividend. I'm going to look at 105 and think what numbers can I easily break that up into. So say I know 3 goes into 90 easily and 15, so I'll split that up into two different numbers that 3 both go into. And so 3 goes into 90 30 times, and 3 goes into 15 5 times. And so I can see that it's 35. But again, this is a mental technique rather than something to write out by hand. Write about by hand, you just do the normal division algorithm. Okay, so the last thing in this section are just computational estimation techniques, ways to check that maybe you got your answer right or at least you're close. So front end, let me give us something that we can adjust this with. Front end estimation is, again, you're focusing on the front end of the numbers as you create your estimate. So 8 times 500 would be 4,000. And I'd look at maybe say the 2 and do 8 times 20, which is another 160. And so I'd get a quick estimate of about 4,100, 4,200. Again, these are just quick estimate approaches. Compatible numbers. So let's say I'm dividing 5 into 40,163. I would ask myself what's 4,163 close to that I know is divisible by 5, and that's really close to 4,000. And so I know 5 goes into 48 times with the 2 zeros. So I'd expect my answer to be somewhere close to 800. A little bit higher than that since I rounded down. But anyways, that's how that technique works.